wish we could have gotten in on that. What?
Going back a few years.
Okay, let's go back a few years.
Yeah. What was the impetus behind the creation of Chip and Dale at Disney?
Okay, well what happened was, they've been doing a series of shorts with Mickey and Pluto and two chipmunks. Mickey and Pluto go to a summer cabin and the chipmunks are living in the stove and they blow out Mickey's magic. Well, what you did is, you got rid of Mickey pretty quick, you know, and most of the contests between Pluto and the character. Well, they did about 3 of those, and Walt said, well, let's see what we can come up with the two chipmunks and Donald. And so Scotty Whitaker and I got the assignment to see what could be done with that. Now, what Scotty and I did, starting right off the bat, we decided, up to that time, it was just 2 mischievous chipmunks. We decided to give them a little identity. So we kept one the regular chipmunk, and the other we gave a red bulb nose and a forelock and splayed his teeth like the goof, you know, and made one a little dumber than the other. Then we had to have a working name for the studio. There's too, you know, so many people involved. So we just off the top of our head, you know, Chipmunks, Chip and Dale Furniture, we just call them Chip and Dale. Now they were never called Chip and Dale in the soundtrack on that first one. I understand they had a jingle later on, but not in that one. And so, but when Walt saw the pencil reel, after he had gone to the animation department, and Jack Hanna's unit is the one who got it to produce, when he saw the pencil reel, he knew he had a winner. So he changed the name of that first short to Chip and Dale. And that's how they became standard Disney characters. Now, Scotty and I were never involved with those characters again. You know, we were factory workers. I mean, Disney was a factory, and it wasn't by any intent that we were never involved. It just didn't have to show up on our particular assembly line. At any place along the line, we could have, you know, called another Chip and Dale to do a story, or we could have worked on Chip and Dale in the animation end of it. But it just never worked out that we were ever involved with Chip and Dale after that.
That's what's really sad about working for someplace like Disney is that, you know, you create something and it's out of your hands. I mean,
somebody want to know how much money I got for creating Chip and Dale. 3 weeks' salary.
And what year? What year was that?
No, we're not going to get into years. I'm not going to break my head trying to find out, remember what year, what happened. I have a book of the Disney films, and anytime I want to know what year, what happened, I look in there and see, you know, what feature was issued in that year and the stuff that I was involved with. But I haven't. It was either late 40s or early 50s, that's all I know.
he's also worked on quite a lot of shorts. I think he worked on Mickey and the Beanstalk. And
Well, that was a featurette.
featurette. He did Pecos Bill,
Well, I
which
was
was right up his alley.
storyman on Pecos Bill. Get this, see. Now, I've been working, you know, I was apprenticing to the story department. I was both in animation and story, but I was an apprentice storyman. My real base was the animation department. And I've been working on Doug shorts. And so they called me up one day, and they said, say, Tex, what do you know about Pecos Bill? You know, a chance to work on a feature. And so I knew that Pecos Bill was a Texas legendary character. I'd seen his name on a bookstore in Dallas, and that was the extent of my knowledge of Pecos Bill. Well, right away I became an authority. Know all about Pecos Bill, grew up on Pecos Bill stories. So well, okay, report to Jim Longer and story tomorrow morning, you're assigned to the Pecos Bill unit.
It was a tall tale, wasn't
So,
it?
so that night, I went to the public library, got out a book on American folk legends, and read up on Pecos Bill, and when I got there the next morning, I knew as much about him or more than anybody there.
There you go.
That's how I happened to work on the Pecos Bill.
Now, that's the Texas spirit for you right there.
But the thing was, you see, we were going to do more. There was all kinds of projects which got shelved. Now, Pecos Bill was to be part of a film about American legendary characters, and they were going to go on location in each part of the country. Start out with the live action shots, and then work into the story. They were going to do. Well, they were going to do John Henry for over in Louisiana. They were going to do Pecos Bill for Texas. They were going to do Paul Bunyan for the Northwest, and so forth. You know. Well, it never worked out. That they didn't have the money, and so we did pieces of what was planned. We did Johnny Appleseed, and we did Pecos Bill, and then they started Paul Bunyan and found out that was a bit too involved, and they finally didn't do that till much later, in a more limited style, because it would've cost them more money than they were gonna get back on it. But Pecosville, so Pecosville is a, you know, instead of being a part of this whole thing, is a featurette, and instead of going on location, they hired, Roy Rogers to come out there and do the live action part of it, and a guy named, there was a real great guitarist who, I can't remember his name right now, but anyway, he did the guitar for it, and that's the extent of what we did with Pecosville, and also, we trimmed it. There was some very funny stuff that we never did. There was one sequence that we were having a lot of fun with. See, Pecosville was raised by the wolves. You know, he was lost off a wagon when he was a baby, and then the wolves raised him. And here he is running around the country with no clothes on, see, and he meets a cowboy, and this cowboy says, "Where's your clothes?" And that's the first time Pecosville realized he didn't have any clothes on. And so, you know, next thing you know, he's got the cowboy's clothes on. But we never, you know, that sequence was never animated. But it would have been a very funny sequence, because we had some very funny stuff on the storyboard. But they had to cut out a lot of that stuff. And we were always doing that. I worked for Uncle Remus, and we trimmed a lot of, we had trimmed out a lot of Uncle Remus. And even when we had to animate, we couldn't afford to paint it. We couldn't afford to ink and paint it.
Well, I have another question. Could you maybe describe what it was like to work for Disney as far as like the creative processes and the attitude of the company, and just what kind of, you know, generally felt like working for, and what Walt was maybe like?
Well, Disney was a fabulous place to work for. The atmosphere around there was very creative, and there was all sorts of surprises around every corner.
Yeah.
And you felt like you were part of something. Of course, a lot of the stuff you worked on was just, you know, factory work, you know, turning it out. But,
What do you mean like factory work? Just
well, it was an assembly line. We were just doing assembly lines, see? I mean, the assembly line works this way. You got the story, which is one story in process of being put together. You're laying out another job, and you're animating another job, you're doing the sound and so forth. And so you did your part of it, and it was a assembly line job. But we were just factory workers, and everybody figured you worked at Disney, you made a lot of money. We made a salary, and Walt made a lot of money, which is what happened with a lot of factories. Now, I worked on Song of the South, which was really considered the first entry of the Disney studio into doing live action films, even though there was an animation section to it. And of course, the live action people were making more money than we were making, and there was kind of hard feelings about that. And so I remember one day we were out at this noon break, and here Lou Anna Patton and Bobby Driscoll, the two kids, started playing on the lawn. They're making more money than we were making. And one of the guys says, "How come they're making more money than we're making? After all, we're the stars in this place." So just being funny, just being facetious, I said, "Well, you know, it takes 12 of us to write a full film, so it takes 2 of them to split their salary among us." You know, suddenly everybody felt better about the whole thing. I was really surprised they bought it. See, you know, I never thought of that. You know, I guess that's right.
Tex got yelled at by Disney one time. It's a pretty funny story you have to tell him though.
Well, yeah, I tell people, you know, that I shook hands with Grandma Moses. I howdy with Salvador Dali. I sat at Norman Rockwell's table, and I was yelled at by Walt Disney. You know, and you know, I only scratched the surface. But what happened is that I was signed to a story thing on Donald Duck called Daddy Duck, and it was about, the theme was that Donald Duck gets a baby kangaroo. Something with Donald and a baby kangaroo. And of course, they already had a story board done in which Donald gets a crate from Australia, and the baby kangaroo's in there. And Walt said, "Well, let's see what else we can do," you know. So I was signed to that unit, and we came up with several approaches. One is that Donald Duck is at a fair, and he has a prize cabbage, and the boxing kangaroo's little baby comes and steals his cabbage, and Donald has a hassle with him about that. Another one was that, I came up with an idea of Donald Duck goes to Australia, and I worked out some very kind of broad slapstick stuff between this. Well, what happened? The thing was, this little kangaroo. You see, this is kind of stretching the point. The little kangaroo did not have a pouch. Well, male kangaroos don't have a pouch. Just females have it anyway. But anyway, the theme I came up with is the little kangaroo didn't have a pouch, and Donald, of course, is a tourist. He has a pouch, and the little kangaroo keeps trying to steal Donald's pouch, and that causes all this hassle. Well, it was a very broad slapstick type thing, And so we'd been working on it about a week or so, and Walt and his entourage, which always traveled with him, came in to have a look at what we were doing, because so each one of us tells our part of the story. We tell our part of the board. So when I went through mine, one of the guys in the audience said, well, you know, Tex, that's very funny stuff, but it's not our kind of stuff. That's more Schlesinger, which, you know, Schlesinger became the Warner Studio. And right there in front of God and Walt, which is like saying the same thing. And I'm all either 20 or 21. I said, well, it wouldn't hurt us to get a little more Schlesinger stuff. Well, I guess they've been needling Walt about it. And, you know, Bugs Bunny was beating us in the charts, and Donald Duck was the popular character, and so there's Walt sits there, and I say, it wouldn't hurt us to get a little Schlesinger stuff. And here the color red starts going up, and right up Walt's face, and finally it hits it, and finally there's this vein that stands out in his head, and it's throbbing. He jumps up and he says, God damn it, he says they can make their pictures, we'll make ours.